Humanity is not ready yet for Elon Musk's AI, and the reason why is because Elon Musk himself has admitted that we need to raise the consciousness of humanity. And this is an important step in the progress to our evolution and in using technology. See, when we raise consciousness, we learn from not just ourselves, but the world around us, and know how to interact with the world around us, including the role of machines, the role of artificial intelligence, so that way it doesn't cause complications. See, in this video, I'm not here to talk about Elon Musk and, who funds him, his salary, how his company operates, my views on artificial intelligence, but rather a deep introspection into what is the nature of artificial intelligence. Well, it's not natural intelligence, but what created artificial intelligence? It was natural intelligence. Humans input data into the artificial intelligence. So that's interesting. Artificial intelligence relies on human beings. It relies on natural intelligence. And if you were to ask me, well, how do we raise consciousness? I would say natural law, which is understanding how life works. And what do we learn in school? Do we learn how life works, how ourselves work, how the world works? Do we learn really how we can understand consciousness and what is consciousness, how we can increase it in today's day and age? Because natural law, as taught by people like Mark Passio and myself, we talk about consciousness quite a bit. Ken Bartle has books about consciousness that a lot of people may be unfamiliar with, but it goes into this natural intelligence, which is why we call it natural law. And something that Elon Musk mentioned in delivering this AI of his is that they want, quote, to make it feel natural. And when people express this ideal of saying, well, we want AI or technology to feel natural, you have to question, well, is it natural? Can you make the distinction between the unnatural and the natural? Because look around you in the world of technology. You start to look around in video games and see it's like, wow, this looks real. Will you be able to tell the difference between reality and illusion? Again, this is not an attack on artificial intelligence or a warning sign about an artificial intelligence. It's about our role, about our understanding, our interactions with it. Because if we aren't aware of that, are we really conscious? I think this is where consciousness really comes into play. If we aren't conscious of the robots, which aren't sentient, but we may be convinced are, then will those robots take over our lives? If they're taking over our functions, do they really help us if we're not doing anything? See, this is the question. See, a lot of people may bring up ideas of artificial intelligence helping creativity, helping humans. But is it really helping humans if it's replacing different functions? Is it helping our natural intelligence? Or is it replacing it? Because if natural intelligence was what created artificial intelligence, and we still love things like love, like care, like these, perhaps you can say, spiritual aspects of this world that are really hard to prove with science and really hard to replicate by technology, if we have these things, do we ever worry about that being inflicted by technology? Those things being diminished, those things being replaced? How often do we feed into illusions on a day-to-day basis, believing certain things to be real? Looking at images online, saying, wow, this looks real, I can get an illusion of reality, but it isn't really reality. How often do you see people around the world? Are they fake or are they real? Are they really expressing their authentic selves, or are they living identities and images from online? Now, I'm not saying that this whole doomer mindset of everything is very bad and, nothing is going to work out. Because again, if we are aware of it, will it really take us over? If we are aware of those things that are complicating humanity, that may come with complications, then are we going to allow those complications? Are we going to try to find solutions to those complications? This is why consciousness is so important. And it's important to realize the contradictions in our arguments. In these contradictions, I'm not attacking Elon for this, but he says that AI would be the end of humanity, stronger than nuclear bombs. But then he also works on AI. Isn't that interesting? He says that governments are basically a monopoly on violence. That's all they do, and they're pretty bad at regulating things, but yet he wants to create a regulatory agency, perhaps for artificial intelligence. See, I don't think he really knows either. I don't think anybody really knows. I'm not claiming to know. But that's the thing. Us as humans, and we admit that we're limited, we know that we can't really dictate for everyone else how everything should work. We really don't know how technology is going to evolve because it's evolving so rapidly. We admit and say, well, wow, we don't know how it's going to look 5 or 10 years from now, but it's an amazing time to be alive. It's an amazing time to see how it's evolving, how much it has evolved, and how much work and dedication people have put into it. But let's think about that. Billions of dollars, perhaps into technology, into these innovations. But what about human consciousness, which is required to upkeep these innovations, which is required to create these innovations, to keep them going, to realize its impact on us, to not be controlled by it. We question, we look at the Terminator, we look at the Matrix, we look at these different movies and sci-fi films and books, and we see a theme of, well, gosh, AI is taking over, but what is also happening? It's humans being programmed. Not just the robots, but humans being programmed, and perhaps programmed to the program, the Matrix, the robots themselves. See, if we are detached from our natural reality, what program are we attached to? We're attached to an illusion. So if we can't differentiate the difference between the natural, the honest, the real, the truthful, versus the fake, the illusory, the artificial, the unnatural, do we really know our place in this world? Do we know our limits? Do we know what us as humans can do to our own health? Do we know the value of relationships, of still having the things that have been had for thousands of years? See, some of that is at question. People are questioning things more than ever. And yes, the advance of technology has brought with it so much innovations, including this message to you. Knowledge, expansion, innovation. That's beautiful. But what stops innovation? Think about it. Innovation requires critical thinking, introducing a new thought into a current paradigm where certain thoughts are current. So you have to question and think outside the box so you don't get stuck in that current paradigm. So you can say this is a new reality, imagination. But what traps imagination? Perhaps it's fear, right? Perhaps it's the idea of, well, wait, that's not possible. We can't do that. But if we have the imagination and say, yeah, it's possible. And if we just put enough effort into it, it is very possible. Because we understand how consciousness works, then the world can absolutely change. See, these are the types of topics I talk about, and many others, over 40 different speakers in the End of Slavery Summit that I'm hosting. Recommend you check that out, because there's a bunch of great minds of people who are utilizing their natural intelligence and realize artificial intelligence can have problems. I think a lot of people know this, instinctually too. People have fears about it, for good reason, but it's not to say we should just throw it off the sideburns and say, oh, off with the computers, off with houses and classes and all these things which are designed, or at least designed by us, intended to help human function, not replace them. So we need to be aware of that, you know? Does it take natural intelligence for artificial intelligence? Yes, but like having control over yourself, you have to question, how about others? How about others? You can have control over yourself. You can recognize natural intelligence. You can have higher consciousness of understanding how these machines work. But what if certain people don't? What if that knowledge is being kept hidden from them? And this is why natural law is very important. We don't talk about that in the face of man's law. And we don't consider the fact that a lot of people want these projects to be open source. There was even a question asked. And people want this technology in the hands of everybody, but people fear it because they fear what people can do with it. But then people also fear what the government would do with it. So is it a win-win scenario? It's very difficult, you see. Between the thin line between, do we allow government to regulate this technology or do we allow it in people's hands? A conversation needs to be created, to say the least. But nonetheless, you have to question, is this knowledge being shared everywhere? Is consciousness being raised everywhere? Because if we don't have ourselves understood, do you think we're going to have machines understood? And if you think we have machines understood, well then how much of ourselves do we have understood? See, because again, we were the ones who created these machines, and I know we're not permanent beings. But guess what has always been here? Nature, Earth itself. I have a message that says nature is the answer. That doesn't make me a hippie that worships nature and says all artificial intelligence is all bad. It makes me recognize and see, well, there's a world that has always been here, and we still are learning from it. If it wasn't for that natural world, we wouldn't have the ability to create any of it. So again, I'm not dissing it. I'm simply recognizing we need to know our time and place and recognize its role within our world. I wrote a book, my second book, Sapientia Naturae, which has a section on artificial intelligence. It's called Natural Intelligence, and I also have a presentation called Naturosophy, which goes a little bit deeper into this as well. But I recommend, if you're new to this study of consciousness and how life works and how man's law works versus natural law, and how consciousness relates to all of that, then I would recommend watching the Natural Law Seminar by Mark Passio. It's a good place to start because it's an overview of all these concepts, and it seems confusing at first. It seems like we can't navigate it. But when we really break it down, as I did to you a little bit in this video, we can better understand ourselves and, again, everything we create, our world around us. So we can have knowledge of both, so we can be conscious, because that's what it means to be conscious, is to have awareness of both patterns in existence, the world and ourselves. You know, it's not consciousness if it's limited. It's not possibility or innovation or creativity if it's limited. Our imaginations, our minds are beautiful. We have so much potential, so much ability, and so much knowledge at our fingertips. So the question to you is, will you use it? Thank you very much for watching. This is Corey Angelat. I'll have links in the description. Thank you. Take care.